Next, let's talk about fine-tuning GPT-2, which you can also do, which is amazing, right? So to do that, we want to run a script that Hugging Face provides, and that's called runclm.py. And let's go take a quick look at that. So Hugging Face has a GitHub repository full of helpful examples. So for example, we can go to examples and go to PyTorch or TensorFlow, whatever your favorite framework is. And if you want to learn more about language modeling, we could go there. And here we can see that there's a bunch of useful tools. For example, a script that can do fine tuning. Let's go to take a look at runclm.py. And that's what this is all about. So this is a handy dandy script they provide to fine tune an existing model from Hugging Face. And well, you can read the documentation if you're so inclined, but I'm just going to show you how to use it. It's quite simple, really. It all talks about it here. But let's just use it, right? Let's just dive right in. So back to our notebook here. First thing we're going to do is actually retrieve a copy of that Python script and get that local. So let's go and use wget to go get a copy of that script. And then we're going to install transformers and then in brackets torch. That's simply to get an acceleration package that we need in order to run this thing successfully. Yeah, accelerate. There it is. That's what we're after there. All right, so now we can actually run the script and do our fine tuning. So let's talk about what we're doing here, okay? So what we're going to do here is say we want to take the GP2 model from Hugging Face. That's the first parameter, model name or path, GPT-2. That's all we need to do to say that we want to fine tune GPT-2 to know about how to do something more specifically. Next, we specify which data set we want to tune it with. So Hugging Face also has a datasets package with a bunch of open source datasets that you can play with for experimental purposes. One of those is the IMDb dataset, which just includes tens of thousands of IMDb movie reviews, along with their actual ratings. So you can use that for things like sentiment analysis. In our case, we're just going to use the text of the reviews themselves to fine-tune GPT-2 to know how to write movie reviews and talk in general more intelligently about movies, right? We then have a few parameters here like the batch sizes for training and evaluation. We'll set that to 8 just because that's the recommendation in the documentation. We want to do training, we want to do evaluation to evaluate how the training's doing, and we want to dump the output into the temporary directory under test-clm. That way I can load up the output of that fine-tuned model and make a new model I can actually do stuff with. So that will take a long time, okay? So GPT-2 is a big model. Training it is a very big and expensive thing to do. And if you're not running on a pro account and you're not running on a beefy GPU instance, it's not going to work. And even if you are, it will take hours. So I'm going to skip that step, okay? I'm not actually going to run this, but you can see that I did earlier, and it actually worked. So it went on for a while. You know, what did we start here at 6:44 p.m.? And it did its thing for a long, long time. And finally, by, it didn't really take that long here. Like, what's that, 7-ish, I think, p.m.? It was done. So cool. That wasn't so bad. So now we can actually create a model using those fine-tuned weights and biases and parameters, right? So I'm going to import pipeline again from transformers. I'm going to import GPT-2 tokenizer, GPT-2 LM head model. That's all I need to do this. I'm going to say I stored that model, that fine-tuned model in temp test CLM. That's just coming from the output parameter above there. And now I'm going to create a pipeline for text generation, just like we did before. And here, instead of saying model equals GPT-2 to just download that straight from Hugging Face, I'm going to say I want that model to be from a pre-trained model that I'm providing in a given directory path. So that's going to go ahead and load up my fine-tuned model that I saved locally here. And I will also specify my pre-trained tokenizer, which was also saved in that directory as well as part of that training process. So now I have my fine-tuned model and my fine-tuned tokenizer as well that matches it. So now we can call that generator just like we did before and say I read a good novel, and you can see that it provided reasonable answers still. So the underlying model that we fine-tuned is still there. You know, it's still able to talk about novels. But let's see what it does with movies now. So you might remember the original GPT-2 model that we used, not the large one, was kind of all over the map and talking about movies. So this time let's ask it again. This movie seemed really long, and see what it comes back with. And you can see here that it's actually starting to sound a lot like IMDb movie reviewers, where, well, frankly, they can be pretty harsh, right? Some of these are bad reviews, and it doesn't know what movie we're talking about, obviously. I didn't say what movie it was. It's just making stuff up. But it's basing this off of all the IMDb movie reviews that it saw from the IMDb review data set that we fine-tuned it with. That's kind of cool. That's kind of amazing. It is filled with hate, but so are real IMDb movie reviewers. So it has done an excellent job of mimicking a movie reviewer, a human movie reviewer on IMDb, just from a relatively short fine-tuning period. So that's fine-tuning in action, using that script that Hugging Face provides. Let's also ask it again about Star Trek. And if you remember right, it just gave me sort of very specific facts about individual shows and series before that probably came from the Wikipedia training. But the IMDb review data actually has reviews for all of these shows and all of these movies, right? So it can talk more about these specific Star Trek series and movies. And you can see this is saying much more detail about these individual shows, and it reads a lot more like an actual fan of the series than just a laundry list of facts that it got off of Wikipedia. So again, you can go back to the GPT-2 output for that same prompt of Star Trek and compare them. This is far, far more in depth. So very exciting stuff of being able to fine tune an existing model, even if it's GPT, to do what you want it to do, to be smarter, if you will, in some specific area of expertise that you want to train it on. There's other applications too, right? So other cool things you could do that we talked about, you could train this on all of your own past emails or transcripts of customer service calls and things like that, and train it to sound like you, or train it to sound like a real customer service representative from your own company, or train it on more recent data than what the original model was trained on. The sky's the limit. And the imagination you can apply there are where a lot of the innovation is happening in the world of AI today.